caught my brother in my prom dress. Despite keeping it well hidden, he mangled it. I crafted a revenge plot that left him shattered. Disclaimer: this is not my tale. It belongs to a friend. I do not endorse it either, so please refrain from blaming the messenger. I make no assertions regarding virtue in her actions, nor do I defend them. This incident occurred when I was 16, naive, full of curiosity, and much to the disapproval of several judges, not eligible to be tried as an adult. I had a big brother whom we shall call a Leo. Like many older brothers during that period, he was coming to terms with his emerging sexuality, among other things that tended to spring up from otherwise flat surfaces whenever Robin appeared on screen in Batman Forever. He attempted to maintain secrecy by plastering Playboy centerfolds over his Ariana Grande posters and enduring game nights with my father during Super Bowl parties, albeit through clenched teeth, likely wishing he could be watching a Britney Spears music video instead. However, akin to a Nintendo Switch tucked under the tree on Christmas Eve, you cannot keep something of such significance hidden for long when inquisitive children are involved. In this situation, the inquisitive child was me. Following the path of numerous twinks who came before him, upon discovering a lifestyle that diverged from the stringent confines of toxic heterosexual masculinity, Leo decided to delve into his feminine side with the zeal and fervor of a messenger bearing vital news. In this scenario, Mount Hero was a nightclub bathroom, while the angel Jibril was a 6'6" IMCA trainer who spelled his name, Johnny, with an I. Ironically, this eagerness to flaunt his girly persona led him to commit the gravest offense a brother can inflict: stealing his sister's clothing. A note to all the gay men reading this: her wardrobe is not your experimental playground, and you are not Dr. Frankenstein. In my defense, had Leo possessed the decency to simply request to borrow my items, under the pretense of shopping for a fictional girlfriend with identical shoe size, colors, height to mine, I would have gladly complied. Indeed, had he merely offered himself as a sacrificial lamb to model for my budding clothing line. 16-year-old, me fancied herself a fashionista with a penchant for designing outfits and repurposing her wardrobe to breathe life into them. I would have been more than eager to guide him into the realm of women's fashion. Yet, the duplicitous scoundrel chose to sneak into my closet and try on my belongings without any permission. He believed he was being clever by placing them back after he was done, but I was a petite women's size 0, while he wore a men's medium. Had he simply acknowledged that his size did not match mine and confessed to his wrongdoing the first time he pilfered, I might have refrained from the retribution I would later unleash. Instead, he persisted in his deluded fantasy that our sizes were compatible, and for weeks, I would attempt to wear my clothes only to discover them grotesquely distorted, with no explanation. I tried concealing my garments in parts of the closet I thought the thief would overlook, only for him to find them anyway. I began sleeping with my favorite outfits as though they were stuffed animals, but even my embrace could not shield them from being misshapen beyond wearability. I resorted to hiding my junior prom dress beneath the bed. At one point, I even began to suspect that I was shrinking. Had I not returned home early one afternoon from a canceled SAT prep session, my tutor was informed of a family emergency halfway through. This tale may have concluded with me in a straitjacket, pleading with some disenchanted therapist to rescue me before I diminished entirely. But destiny had other plans. I darted toward my room upon sensing sounds beyond the door. Realizing I was witnessing the nefarious clothing abductor, I concealed myself in the corridor bathroom and peered through a crack in the door until the perpetrator vacated my room. Imagine my shock upon discovering that it was a Leo. To my horror, I saw him go under my bed to place something there, and upon his departure, my worst fears were validated. He had tried on my cherished prom dress. Earlier in the week, I had boasted to him about how well I had concealed it from the closet ghost, thinking it would slip through his ears while simply wanting to showcase my intelligence in taking extra precautions. I barged in, demanding to know why he was wearing my clothes. He condescendingly retorted that he looked better in them than I did. My heart sank when I found that the zipper had broken and the fit was horrifically mangled. I descended in tears, pleading with my mother to reassure me that it could be salvaged, only for her to inform me of what I dreaded most. She was not particularly sympathetic, assuming I had inflicted the damage myself, and she refused to buy me another one. I insisted that Leo reimburse me for the dress so that I could replace it, but he provided me with less than half of its original cost. He disputed my claim, unwilling to believe it was worth more than my stated amount, and regrettably, my mother did not possess the receipt to corroborate it, as she was a bit scatterbrained regarding payment records. When I threatened to inform her that he was the one who had ruined the dress, he chuckled, asserting they would never believe me. Despite my rage and fury spiraling me into a fit of hysteria, I still acknowledged he was correct. The two-faced scoundrel deserved an Oscar for his straight facade, and even if he were cavorting in a rainbow unitard singing "Born This Way" by Lady Gaga, my parents would be the type to deny his sexuality until they returned home to find him engaged in unspeakable activities on the kitchen table with a Puerto Rican bodybuilder. I came to the realization that if I wanted revenge, I needed to devise my own strategy. This involved targeting his vulnerable spot. But where exactly does one find the weak point in a brother whose standard male vulnerabilities have long since dulled from excessive use of fleshlights and whose rectal cavity now serves as a repository? The answer lay within his phone. Over several weeks, each time Leo settled onto the couch with his phone, I casually maneuvered behind him until I discerned his phone's PIN code. He consistently locked his room, but thanks to some tutorials on YouTube regarding how to pick a basic door lock with a bobby pin, that obstacle quickly resolved itself. Whenever Leo went to shower, I would slip in and infiltrate his phone, providing myself with a 15-minute crash course in the preferences valued by the typical bottom. Surprisingly, he fancied himself the next big sensation in the drag scene. He was utilizing my outfits to solidify his status as the rising star of the social media drag scene. I contemplated deleting his account, but I did not want him to suspect me and potentially inform my parents. Besides, he could always create a new account and restart his endeavor. He enjoyed Drag Race, K-pop, and iced coffee. However, I couldn't ruin his chances of appearing on the show, and in the digital age, there were no CDs to destroy or swap out. Of course, there was the option of tainting his coffee with something unpleasant, but I desired him to feel the pain I had endured. The anguish I felt simply could not be measured against a wasted $5.99 plus tax. I was on the verge of conceding defeat after about 2 weeks of searching for something when I stumbled upon his Grindr app. After my initial revulsion to the application, not because I was homophobic, but due to his profile being filled with his nudes, I quickly realized that regardless of his interests, my brother's anatomy was not appealing to me. Leo wasn't into hookups, but evidently, he did enjoy sending nudes to anyone who requested them. It is important to note that he always obscured or blacked out his face for privacy, and he appeared to edit the backgrounds of all his photos post-production while consistently keeping his location set to never. I suddenly comprehended why he monopolized the bathroom for upwards of 20 minutes every weekend. I had merely assumed he was suffering the consequences of indulging in Chipotle every Friday with friends, but now I understood. He was essentially trying to find the best angles for his viewers. Just like that, I finally concocted a plan. My subsequent actions were not ones I take pride in, but I was filled with bitterness, hurt, and a desperate desire for revenge. I make no excuses, I am simply stating the facts. I downloaded Grindr onto my phone and created a false account. I utilized a stock photo of a well-defined six-pack for my profile and entered a plethora of false information, including a spoof GPS location, thanks to the internet for guiding me through the process. I knew this would truly impact my brother's life. He seemingly did not care who was receiving his risque pictures as much as he cared about how cute he looked in them. The boy fancied himself a male model and seemed to believe Grindr was the ideal platform to gauge his appeal within the industry. During the following weeks, I became one of his regular contacts, consistently requesting pictures, which I would promptly delete upon receipt. I messaged him so often and flattered his ego in precisely the manner I knew he enjoyed. Having perused enough of the chats saved on his phone to recognize what types of compliments encouraged him to keep sharing instead of simply growing bored and blocking someone after the second or third time, he sent them pictures before redirecting his attention elsewhere. I distilled what made him tick down to a science and it wasn't long before I had him eating out of the palm of my hand. Eventually, I secured a spot in his affections as one of his exclusives. At my suggestion, we initiated sessions whereby we would schedule times for him to flood my basement, sending me batches of photos he had taken throughout the week while I would engage in live chats detailing the effects they had on me. It was nauseating, yet I was unwilling to let my squeamish principles interfere with my vengeance. Not after how far I had progressed. The next phase of my plan involved my search on Pornhub for a performer whose voice bore similarities to my father's, one with a loud, battle cry. You see where this is going. If you want to back out now, no one will judge you, who typically paired up with more submissive partners. After several fruitless searches that culminated with me sobbing in the fetal position, questioning how much longer I could maintain this charade, and whether it was worth it, followed by the world's most twisted pep talk about how I was a fighter who could do it. Think of that scene from Joker where Arthur puts on his clown makeup while crying, and you will have something akin to my struggle. I finally discovered a performer whose voice resonated with my father's. I downloaded a number of videos featuring him playfully interacting with some slender 20-somethings, edited them together with a rudimentary online video editing tool, converted the footage to audio, and separated my leading man's ecstatic shouts from the softer moans. I saved the file on my computer under the alias, a brand new take on Oedipus. Lastly, I approached my father under the pretense of needing his assistance with a school project while my brother was out with his friends. I informed him that I was performing a one-woman show for my drama midterm and required him to voice the off-screen father of my protagonist. I asked him to recite various lines for me to record on my phone, all the while encouraging him to say them naturally. These lines included, but were not limited to, "I told you not to disturb me. What is it? Is everything all right? Now is not a good time to talk," and most importantly, "I finished my work, so I think I will head out to join the rest of the family at the movie theater. See you later." I transferred the audio files to my laptop with great anticipation, eagerly awaiting the pivotal moment of my grand scheme. One Saturday morning, I had orchestrated a session, during which my parents were to be out of the house and I would be with them. Or so Leo believed. You see, my mother, father, and younger brother were all going to the park near my home for a typical family outing. We would wander through the park, take a stroll around the local lake, and perhaps catch a movie if the mood struck us. Typically, we depart between 4 and 5 p.m. and return home at night. I anticipated that today would be a movie day because my little brother had been pestering our parents to see a particular children's film, which I had discovered was out this weekend, courtesy of yours truly. Before I left the house, I ensured my bedroom door was wide open, important for later. While at the park, I asked to use my father's phone, explaining that my battery was low, which clarified why I could not employ my own. I then texted Leo, indicating that Dad had just received a call from his boss stating that he needed to complete some extra work. I would be in my office across the hall from his room, and under no circumstances should I be disturbed, as I had a lot to accomplish in little time before my deadline. I waited until he had read the text and responded with a thumbs-up emoji before informing my parents that I wanted to return home due to an early visit from the lady in red. Not one to stand in the way of a young woman and her monthly cycle, my father allowed me to go home. Feeling stealthy, I returned to the house, all the while sending Leo my reactions to what we shall refer to as his cute little peach. Technically, we had initiated the session 15 minutes prior. I crept into the house and tiptoed into my room. With my door wide open, I didn't need to fret about Leo detecting the creaking sound from his room. They were adjacent, hoping he would not exit for any reason in time to discover my presence. I retrieved my laptop and the Bluetooth speaker I used for music in the shower, then made sure to close and securely lock my dad's office door, ensuring he would hear me from inside his room while I knew he was sending me pictures. I subsequently texted Leo to apologize for being stuck doing something trivial, but now you have my full attention, baby. It was time for the grand finale, in more ways than one. First, I connected my presently muted laptop to my Bluetooth speaker, which I had set to maximum volume in advance. Then, I opened the Oedipus file and began playing it, as I texted an increasing number of raunchy and unhinged reactions to the incoming images. just as we approached the climax of the video containing the loudest scream. I had saved the best for last. I texted a Leo that he was, making me come so hard like the little slut he was. Just in time to amplify the volume to its highest setting on my laptop, right before the Tarzan-like whoop of ecstasy I knew was imminent. The scream erupted at a decibel level that could shatter sound barriers. Describing it as merely loud would be a gross understatement. I would not have been surprised if it reached the neighbors or even individuals residing in distant places like Siberia. But one thing was indisputable: there was no way for my brother not to hear it. I swiftly shut off the Oedipus file, reduced the volume, and kept my finger at the ready on my father's voice recordings. At first, silence reigned. All was still, much like the cosmos prior to the Big Bang. The mounting tension could have induced a heart attack had I executed this scheme in my 50s. I strained every fiber of my being to refrain from screaming due to the suspense. The agony was pure torture. I felt paralyzed in anticipation, yet I forced myself to shift my attention to the Grindr chat. I relentlessly typed inquiries asking why a Leo had suddenly ceased sending pictures, all while remaining keenly alert for any sound emanating from beyond the door. Time seemed to crawl. Then, just as I began to ponder whether the dearth of responses stemmed from losing touch with reality amidst the stress of waiting, I heard the soft creaking of a door opening. The noise was faint enough to cause me to question whether it had actually occurred. By now, I was nearly desensitized to the waiting period, so much so that part of me wanted to disbelieve the sound in fear of how I would react if it proved to be real. Yet it couldn't possibly have been real. And then, I began to hear something else: footsteps across the room. They were soft, hesitant, and cautious, but undeniably present. Knock, knock, knock. I inhaled deeply and prepared to play one of the tapes. The ensuing conversation unfolded as follows: a Leo on the other side of the door. Dad's pre-recorded voice: a Leo, Dad. Are you in there? Dad, I told you not to disturb me. What is it, Leo? How long have you been in there? Dad, I've been in here for a while. Leo, I heard a scream. Is everything all right, Dad? Oh yeah. I screamed because I dropped something on my foot. I had deliberately encouraged my dad to deliver this line as if he were concealing something. I'm fine now, though. Don't worry about me, Leo. Okay? If you say so. Dad, I love you. Leo, yeah, me too, I guess. I heard Leo retreat back to his room, and within seconds, I received a notification from the Grindr chat. He apologized for the delay and, like putty in my hands, he expressed exactly what I was anticipating. Leo, you're not going to believe this, but my dad is in the next room, and I heard him scream at the same time you said you were coming, lol. And thus commenced what the French might refer to as the piece de resistance. I left him on read and stealthily descended downstairs with my equipment while he awaited my response. Quiet as a mouse, I set up my laptop and speaker for one last audio explosion. I laced up my shoes and relaxed for a few minutes, watching as his texts grew increasingly frantic, pleading with me to respond with, "Lol, that's so weird," assuring him that it was merely coincidence. A compassionate sister would have recognized that avenging her dress should not come at the cost of her brother's peace of mind and would have confessed the prank. Instead, I texted him, "Leo, we are never going to speak of this. Not to your mom, not to your siblings, not to me. If you dare to bring it up, you will no longer be allowed to stay in this house. We will treat this incident as if it never happened. I need you to delete your account on this app, along with every single picture you posted on it. If you know what's best for you, don't ever return to the application while living under my roof." Then, I blocked him before executing the final phase of my plan. From downstairs, I amplified both volume levels and played the last line of audio I had recorded from my father. I finished my work, so I think I will head out to join the rest of the family at the movie theater. See you later. At that moment, I heard a Leo inquire, "Wait, what?" From upstairs, I could hear him descending. It was time to escalate my efforts. I shoved my laptop and speaker into a cabinet beneath the sink, slipped on my shoes, and stealthily exited through the back door to hide behind the shed. A few hours later, my family made their way into the driveway, and I emerged to greet them as if I had been with them the entire time. His relationship with my father was never quite the same after that day, and for many nights to come, I overheard my father lamenting the breakdown of his bond with his once close son. Leo relocated less than a year after the prom dress incident. He finally came out with a Facebook post 1 week following his acclimation to a new apartment. He blocked my parents on all social media channels and vanished entirely from their lives. Any attempts made by my father to restore their father-son connection were met with cold indifference, and at times, Leo outright refused to engage with him. For years, the only times they interacted in person were during extended family gatherings. I felt somewhat sympathetic toward my father, but ultimately, it worked out well. Leo's determination to distance himself from my father inadvertently brought him closer to me. I believe he was reluctant to lose the rest of his siblings the same way he had his oldest. In all honesty, I would have been content to let Leo endure guilt and shame for the rest of his life. We weren't particularly close growing up, and the prom dress incident was merely the smallest of tips on an enormous iceberg. However, over the years, our relationship gradually improved, and it could have evolved into something resembling a healthy sibling connection had he not attempted to hijack my wedding planning and reveal his own intentions to conduct a free engagement ceremony coming-out party by commandeering my reception with a proposal to his then-boyfriend. I tried to reason with him, but his unwavering obstinacy forced me to use the Uno reverse card I had hoped to avoid. I sent him a text disclosing that all this time, Dad had no idea he was gay and that I had been the one communicating with him on Grindr. I concluded my message with a warning if he attempted to show up, I would have security escort him away and subsequently inform the entire family that he had sexted his sister in high school, and I possessed the evidence to support it. I had never kept any, but he was unaware of that. He might have been able to dispute my claim had he not deleted his old Grindr account from that time. I then blocked him on all platforms before he could reply. He did not attend my wedding, I never saw him again, and my quality of life significantly improved in his absence. In summary, my closeted brother secretly began wearing my clothing in an effort to elevate his status as a social media drag persona. As a result, he ruined my prom dress and subsequently refused to compensate me when confronted. I catfished him on Grindr and deceived him into believing he was sending nudes to our father. His relationship with the family unraveled after I threatened him never to mention the incident. I allowed him to languish for years with what he believed to be his scandalous secret until I became engaged, and he attempted to dominate my wedding festivities with a proposal to his boyfriend. I revealed to him that I had been the one impersonating our dad all those years prior, and threatened to reveal his nudes and accuse him of being an incestuous pervert if he made an appearance. After blocking him, he did not attend the ceremony, and my life greatly improved without him in it. Story 2. Groupmates slacked off on our project. I did everything, signed. Starting to SAV did all the work. They flunked and I thrived. Summary, my inconsiderate classmates contributed almost nothing to our project, and I directed my teacher's attention to them. This is a bit lengthy, so please forgive me. Additionally, I attempted to share this on petty revenge, but it did not go through, so I would appreciate your opinion on whether my actions were petty or a form of justified revenge cast. Pathological liar sheep boy amazing teacher me, as starting to SAV this incident occurred during my 7th grade year. At that time, the school district mandated that all students take part in an annual science fair, which spanned from elementary school to the conclusion of middle school. The purpose was to pique students' interest in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics careers. After 6 years of entering science fairs, I was accustomed to the standard procedures of completing a science fair project. I typically formulated some hopefully original project idea, usually the classic, electricity from a potato, project, developed a hypothesis, gathered data, paid around $10, $20 for a science fair board from the school or Home Depot, and then pasted charts and diagrams onto the board the night before the presentation, repeating this process year after year. However, this year, my class approached things differently. My class had the distinction of being the first selected to engage in a virtual science fair. We were essentially volunteered for this experiment. No other section in our district had ever attempted a virtual science fair, so we were being used as test subjects. To make matters more complex, Our class was also tasked with fostering healthy collaboration among students, necessitating that we work on projects in groups. I detest group work. I consistently found myself with unreliable group members. Either I ended up with someone who did minimal work, leaving the remaining group members and me to compensate, or everyone in the group, aside from me, avoided contributing altogether. Despite my pleas for participation, I ultimately had to do everything myself to safeguard my grades. At that point, I was a straight A student, so being assigned group work posed a threat to my academic performance and my peace of mind. If I ever received anything less than an A, my mother would ask, "Why didn't you achieve an A? Do you need help at school?" This drove me up the wall since I was not failing. In any case, the online science fair was relatively straightforward. As a group, we accessed a shared science fair board where we could input our findings, figures, and hypotheses. We needed to have specific sections completed by set dates to earn points toward our grade. The entire project was due in 2 months, and we would then give our presentation. Amazing teacher was exceptional. She intended for us to maintain a composition book documenting our project progress alongside the online portion, which she would review during our presentation in 2 months. I believe this was meant to assist us in keeping track of notes in case we forgot to log them digitally later, but I utilized it as a tool for my revenge. I was paired with pathological liar and sheep boy, who I was somewhat friendly with. We brainstormed ideas and settled on testing an individual's performance in exercise before and after consuming an energy drink. This was partially inspired by the recent popularity of Monster energy drinks and Sheep Boy's parents acquiring a new home gym. I thought it was a great idea since I was playing football at the time and wanted to exercise more. Additionally, pathological liar, Sheep Boy, and I shared every class and lived within a mile of one another, making communication quite convenient. However, Sheep Boy and pathological liar seemed disinterested in discussing the project. After 2 weeks of silence from both, I finally managed to gather them in one spot and proposed we meet at Sheep Boy's house that weekend to begin our project. Unfortunately, on the day of our meeting, Sheep Boy had to go grocery shopping with his mom, so he was unavailable. Undeterred, I suggested to pathological liar that we work at my house instead and research existing studies on the topic to get started. However, pathological liar never showed up that day. Consequently, I decided to confront him on our walk home from school the following day. You would not believe the excuse this boy gave me. While we were close to my house, pathological liar claimed he couldn't come over yesterday or today due to his grandparents being involved in a plane crash. I was taken aback and exclaimed, "What? Really?" But I didn't hear anything about a plane crash on the news. Pathological liar responded, indignantly, "Plane crashes happen frequently, starting to SAV. Not all of them get reported. Their plane collided with another on the tarmac, rolled over and lost both wings." Me, "Oh my, I'm so sorry, did they die?" PL, "What? No, why would they die, you idiot? Anyway, I can't do the project this week, see ya." This little brat then dashed home. After arriving home and realizing he had concocted a ludicrous tale, I decided to disregard it and filled out the initial sections of the project, jotting notes in the composition book to ensure we had something to submit the following week. I was willing to give the group another chance, as their busy middle school lives might have been overwhelming. After 2 more weeks of trying to coordinate with my group and encouraging them to contribute at least a page or 2 to the report, we ultimately agreed to meet at Sheep Boy's house once more to start collecting data. This time, we all showed up, and Sheep Boy's mom had purchased the Monster energy drinks we needed. Pathological liar began to guzzle them, wanting to test the drinks first. Sheep Boy showcased his new home gym and then distracted us by getting us to play Smash Bros for half an hour. Initially, I hesitated to play, but then decided to relax, believing we could conduct the tests afterward. After coaxing my group back to the gym, pathological liar just rambled and chatted. Attempting to be practical, I said, "Hey guys, why don't we start our exercise now and record some data? Afterward, I can show you all how to play Smash Bros." Sheep Boy seemed willing initially until pathological liar let out a dramatic sigh and said, "Oh my gosh, starting to SAV, we didn't invite you over to work on this ridiculous project. We invited you to hang out." Sheep Boy's attitude shifted completely as he added, Yeah, we don't want to do the stupid project right now. I was furious. Pathological liar was spouting nonsense. This wasn't even his home. I had organized this gathering to collect scientific data. I was the one managing the group. The opportunity I had given them had been squandered, and they were certainly not deserving of another chance. I relented and said, "Fine, let's just hang out then." That night I was infuriated, which fueled my desire for revenge. I enlisted my parents to assist with the science fair project, and they volunteered to work out and consume energy drinks, solving the data collection dilemma. Once I obtained enough data, I documented everything for the project in the composition book and uploaded it to the online science fair board. I even created all the PowerPoint slides and scripts for our presentation. For the following weeks leading up to the presentation, Sheep Boy and Pathological Liar didn't even inquire about the project. They had no intention of contributing anything. While my anger motivated me to complete the project, I still wanted to do something petty, so I wrote in the corner of the composition book, "Starting to SAV did all the work." I was eager to see how Pathological Liar would attempt to wriggle out of this predicament, knowing that amazing teacher would review our composition books during the presentation. On presentation day, Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy sat anxiously at their desks, aware that they were unprepared. I entered casually, urging them to relax, as I had created the PowerPoint. They calmed down, oblivious to how foolish they were about to appear. Oh, how ridiculous they looked while we presented to the entire class. I had memorized the slides and my script, effortlessly moving around the room, making eye contact, and delivering an excellent presentation on our project. Meanwhile, Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy merely read from the slides with blank expressions, their hands stuck in their pockets, not even bothering to move. I greatly enjoyed the sight, particularly glancing to the back of the classroom where amazing teacher was examining our composition book. She occasionally interrupted our presentation to ask questions and compare with what was documented in the book. But then, the moment of truth occurred, and I felt a thrill of satisfaction. I saw amazing teacher pause and read from the book. She then shared aloud, "Starting to SAV did all the work." I sensed Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy freeze next to me. PL, ever the schemer, stumbled over his words, responding, Yeah, he worked on that section, miss." Amazing teacher adjusted her glasses to peer over the rims at Pathological Liar and coolly replied, "So you're suggesting that Starting to SAV simply signed his part of the composition book and that you all contributed equally?" Pathological Liar, "Yes, ma'am." Me shrugs. At this moment, I hesitated. I didn't want to face the social backlash from them or their friends for challenging Pathological Liar's lie, so I chose to remain silent. At least I managed to embarrass them temporarily. Following my triumphant moment of humiliating Pathological Liar and Sheep Boy, I assumed nothing significant would result from it, but how wrong I was. Upon receiving grades for the project, I was disheartened to find I had received a 96%. It wasn't the perfect I had hoped for, and I braced myself for my mother's inevitable question, "Why didn't you achieve an A+? Why didn't you get a 100%? Then, Sheep Boy and Pathological Liar approached me, eyes wide with anxiety, demanding to know, "What grade did you get?" Me, "I received a grade, why do you ask?" A snarky way to evade questions about my grade, Pathological Liar. Sheep Boy got a 66%, and I received a 48%. I was taken aback by this revelation, then realized amazing teacher must have questioned my group members separately about the project and assigned them the grades they warranted. Oh my petty revenge had dramatically impacted their grades. This science fair project comprised a substantial 25% of our total grades that year. I was incredibly grateful that amazing teacher recognized my frustrations and penalized them. Edit: wow, this post gained a lot of attention. I appreciate everyone for reading my story. I also want to thank everyone for the constructive feedback regarding my storytelling and highlighting key aspects of revenge. I will certainly apply them in my future posts.